Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Man Treks. I'm Sarah.
And I'm JJ.
And we are here to welcome you to the weird world of our goofy conversation.
Also, you were giving me like this weird ventriloquist smile, like while you were saying that. You're like,
because I said weird.
I didn't know what to do.
I was gonna say world of weird, and then I was gonna say weird world, but I'm carrying out weird. So
quirky Christian. Let's stick to the C's and the Q's.
Sorry.
Quirky Christian commentary with cute kids.
I didn't think it was about cute kids.
Oh, I know it's true. The kiddos are sleeping.
It's about a Christian couple.
It's that space we go to tell funny stories and play games and have hot topics and all that kind of good stuff. Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm looking forward to this. It's been a long weekend. It's just good to take a break and tell these stories with you. All right, now we're coming in cold. I have no idea what your stories are. You have no idea what my stories are, so there might be overlap, but that's okay. Why don't you go first?
So my first story is: woman finds her own long-lost wallet washed up on the beach.
What?
So a woman walking her dogs in British Columbia made a surprising discovery among the trash that washed up with the tide. Her own long-lost wallet.
That's crazy, though. What are the odds of that happening? That's like impossible to calculate.
So Marcy Calvert said she and her dogs were on the beach of a remote island where she and her husband lived near Tofino when she spotted something familiar. I knew right away, she told CHEK News. It stopped me right in my tracks. She chronicled her discovery on TikTok and said she had dropped the wallet on into the water while boarding a boat in 2023. In June 2023.
So 6 months ago, like a year ago.
Where we live, we don't have a dock, and we have to canoe to our anchor buoy where the boat is. I had my wallet in an unzipped pocket of my backpack and forgot to zip it. When I went to hop onto the boat, I heard a splash, but assumed it was the way the water was splashing, and I didn't think anything of it. She said she had a diver search for the wallet shortly after it was lost. And they had no luck.
That's heartbreaking. Yeah.
So she said the wallet, cash, cards, and ID are still in remarkably good condition after showing up on the beach.
Wow.
The only damage is that the zipper was corroded, she said.
That's fantastic.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. So just a long lost wallet gone forever for months.
Yep.
And then it pops up. It sounds like if they're like on the lake and they canoe to the place where their boat is or whatever. It sounds small to me.
Yeah.
Like that makes it sound like kind of a smallish.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. All right, so my first story is Iran claims ownership over Antarctica and plans to build a military base there.
What?
This
is fake, right? Fake news?
No, it's totally real. They're wrong, but the Iranian Navy Rear Admiral Shahram Irani declared that his country has quote-unquote property rights in Antarctica, particularly the South Pole, in a newly surfaced video. This is a translation. It says, with regard to the South Pole, we have property rights there, and they belong to the public. It's a television broadcast from last fall that people are suddenly paying attention to.
What?
It's so bizarre and so funny. Like, it's just ridiculous. He added, our plan is to raise the flag there. It's not only military work, but also scientific work that needs to be carried out. He said the move will benefit Iran's scientific community. Our scientists are getting ready for a joint operation encompassing the effort of all of our people in keeping with the guidelines of our leader, inshallah.
Wow.
The Washington, D.C. based Middle East Research Institute translated the interview on the television channel in late September of 2023.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of old news, but suddenly people are like translating it and going, oh, that's a funny thing for Iran to say.
Yup. Interesting. We're claiming this on behalf of. Okay, sure.
Well, and it's like, no, you
can't do that.
You can't have it, right? So this is what's I think is fascinating. So Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and the United Kingdom are currently the 7 countries that have laid territorial claims on Antarctica.
Really?
However, most other countries do not recognize these claims. I'm surprised we are not in there. Like the U.S. has no territorial claim over Antarctica. First off, who wants this? Like, who cares about the penguins and the ice? That's all that's down there. You know?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Is there oil fields under there? I don't think so.
Cool, I guess. Well, it's cold.
I'm pretty sure AVP told me that there's like aliens down there and
frozen,
stuff. Yeah, they're frozen. So The country's property rights in Argentina come as rising global tensions have expanded throughout the Middle East amid the Iran-backed Hamas attack on Israel and numerous attacks by the Iran-aligned Houthis.
Wow.
So there's like, maybe that's why people are paying attention. They're like, oh, what are you doing with the military? It sounds like they see it as more of a scientific thing. He mentions the military, but then he's like, it's for the scientists.
For research, yeah.
And I'm like, that makes sense. You need military to get there, but once you get there, there's nothing to shoot at. Like, what are you going to do? Hurt the penguins?
That's bizarre. Hurt the penguins. Iran wants the penguins.
Or you could do like what's that Batman movie? Is that the second Batman movie where Penguin has all the little penguins with rockets strapped?
Gosh, I forgot about that.
That's their secret evil plan.
That's what they're going to do.
No, I did see this thing I was talking about. There's a treaty that was signed in 1959, way back by the major powers of the world at that time. And they all basically said, there's nothing here of value. We're not going to fight over it. It's here for scientific research. Anybody can come here. We're not, like, this isn't going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But Iran was not on that list. They did not sign that document.
Weird.
But it was 1959. It was like way back. And it's like those who cared at the time were paying attention and said, we're all going to not fight about it. And Iran just kind of bulldozes in and says, no,
we're going to fight
it's mine now. Mine.
You can't call shotgun.
Shotgun infinity.
That's not a thing.
I'm very curious as to, number one, why? Like, why say this now? But then if they mean it, why? What did they want?
Oh, yeah, that's bizarre.
Like, maybe it's just...
I'm so curious to see what they're going to try and do.
Well, and another thing could be, like, literally this could just be announcing a scientific expedition, but because it's Iran and because he said military, everybody freaks out. And it's like, well, maybe he just actually is saying... That was so good. I heard it. The burp.
Sorry.
1,000 burps. Why be sorry? It's adorable. We are joined tonight by our youngest, Maggie.
Who apparently can hold her own in burping.
Her podcast debut, when she's much older and trying to become famous, we'll always be able to tell her, your first entrance on a podcast was when you burped in the background.
That wasn't her first. She was here long before that.
So that's all I got on Iran claiming ownership of Antarctica.
That's one for the books, I'll tell you. Okay, so my next story is kind of a little weirder than my last one.
Nice.
Caught at the border with a python in his pants. A New York City man was fined and sentenced to probation. He actually had pythons in his pants. That's
the title of an inappropriate film.
Yep, I'm sure it is. There's snakes on a plane and there's pythons in the pants.
Oh my gosh.
So a New York City man who admitted to smuggling 3 Burmese pythons through a U.S.-Canadian border crossing was sentenced on Wednesday to a year of probation and fined $5,000.
The whole world of sneaking animals into other countries, like, that has been so many of our goofy stories. Like,
it's bizarre.
Like, what was the one thing he had, like, otters or like gophers or something in his pants? And then there was the lady who was
prairie dogs, weren't they?
Yeah. It was some kind of prairie dog something or other, and it was like, what are you doing? And they're just like sticking them in their pockets and stuff, and it's like super random. But a snake?
Yeah, snakes. So 38-year-old man was crossing into northern New York with hidden snakes on a bus from Montreal to New York City in July of 2018. Wow. The young adult snakes were hidden in the inner thighs of his pants in snake bags.
Nope, I'm not putting a snake
tied to the pants drawstring. Snake bags? Is that a thing?
Bags.
Like, they were discovered by border protection officers.
Sir, I need to check and see if there's a snake in your bag.
Oh, that's appropriate.
That's harassment.
That's for the officers, maybe. The Queens resident purchased the snakes, which were worth more than $2,500 at a reptile store in Canada, and then tried to smuggle them across the border. The importation of Burmese pythons is regulated by an international treaty and by the U.S. federal regulation, listing them as injurious to human beings. To human beings.
That's valid.
It's one of the largest snakes. It's considered a vulnerable species in Asia and is invasive in Florida, where it threatens native animals. Whoa, it's invasive in Florida?
Interesting. So I believe it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. It's like you can't bring in these species because they come in and they take over and they're unknown to the wildlife that's native there, and so they like flourish almost always. Wow.
I thought that was
in my
ridiculous.
Snake bags.
Maybe inappropriate,
What
but
is a
mostly just
snake
like,
bag?
what the heck? Yeah, what is a snake bag?
That's great clickbait, though. I mean, the articles that you can write. Python in his pants. Like,
Yeah, like, so weird, but also like literally carrying 3 pythons. Like, ugh.
wow, Iran is trying to strap rockets to the back of penguins, and men are having pythons in their pants. I mean, this is a strange world.
What a world we live in. It's
what
horrifying.
a world it could be. Wow, I love that so much. It's horrifying.
It really is.
Mine's worse. A
Oh, dear.
Delta flight had to do a U-turn after maggots dropped in on a passenger from an overhead bin. You didn't see this one?
Oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
Maggots?
Maggots gross me out so much.
Oh my gosh. February 18th, 2024, a Delta flight was diverted on Tuesday after maggots fell from a suitcase. The suitcase contained rotten fish.
Why was it on the plane?
Yeah. The incident marks the latest flight canceled due to safety hazards on board. A Delta flight had to turn around. It fell from a passenger suitcase onto another passenger.
Oh.
So somebody brought rotten fish with maggots in their suitcase. The incident, which occurred on the Delta flight DL133 from Amsterdam to Detroit on Tuesday, caused the plane to do a U-turn around an hour after takeoff. I cannot fathom how annoyed I would be if you're doing an international flight. People are probably waiting for you, and you have to do a U-turn.
Why? Like, how do they not smell that? How did someone not smell that and go, excuse me, I'm so sorry. What is in that bag?
What is in your suitcase? That's disgusting. Philip Shotty, a passenger from the Netherlands who was on the flight, told Fox 2 Detroit that he was witnessed the maggots fall on the passenger from the suitcase. She was freaking out, he told the publication. She was just trying to kind of fight off these maggots.
Oh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it.
I don't really know what was going through my mind. I was trying to process it. Disgust is the one thing, of course. We had to wait there for help to actually come. So the maggots were falling on her, and then the flight attendants were able to locate the source of the maggots, a suitcase that contained a rotten fish. That's like an evil prank, you know? Like
that
that's
sounds
just
disgusting. And like, what?
They wrapped it in newspaper, took it to the back of the plane, then the flight was diverted. A little bit. Okay, so I know it's disgusting, right? That is so gross to have maggots falling on you. But that seemed like if you can find the source, throw away the fish, do you have to turn around? Like, this is a massive, you know what I mean? The amount of gas and everything. Ugh. The flight was diverted back. Another passenger on the flight told the Daily Mail that a man who claimed the fish as his own was detained on the plane as the rest of the passengers departed. So he got like arrested. It's not known if any further action was taken against the passenger. Nobody knew. Travelers were delayed overnight because of the incident. They were compensated with a hotel accommodation, a $30 meal trip, and 8,000 air miles. So they have to give like everybody there a free ride, a free dinner, and a free night in a hotel.
Because some guy decided to bring a dead fish with a rotten fish with maggots on it?
I want to know how it got through. Like, doesn't food get flagged on security? Like, you can't put food in your overhead bin or whatever. Well, can you? Can you have snacks?
You can, but you have to go through airport security. They screen your bag. How do they not catch a fish?
Well, maybe they saw. It's like, oh, it's somebody's snack.
A whole fish?
That's gross.
I'm pretty sure you can't. No, that's disgusting.
Representatives for Delta did not immediately respond to Business Insider's request for comment. However, they confirmed that the flight was interrupted due to improperly packed carry-on bag. That's one way to put it.
That's their... Oh, wow. Improperly packed carry-on bag and undisposed
There's
garbage.
a pattern of flights being canceled or delayed due to safety hazards or medical issues on board. Have you ever heard this? So here's a hypothetical. Theoretically, if someone has like a crazy heart attack and passes away on a flight.
Oh,
right.
Maybe.
Let's say the flight is a 6-hour flight and they're 3 hours in, right? So they're like almost halfway. The protocol is they have to turn around and go home. So the question is, if the person is already dead, why turn around?
That's true.
Right? Like is it more respectful or disrespectful?
Does it have something to do with like legal stuff? Like
I don't know. I know that that's the policy. There was like a question posted on a message board one time, and it was like, well, why? It's gonna make everyone else late and ruin it's like, why can't we just notify the family, and when you land, you know what I mean? It was like, they're already dead. You're not like rushing them to the hospital.
It's true.
That's different if they could possibly go. I think it might have something to do with like they need someone to pronounce them or double check or something. We don't know that they're
destination.
Dead. I don't know. But there's like rules about like, I don't know, we have to turn around.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Apparently, but there's a ton of this kind of stuff happening. There was a flight from Atlanta to Barcelona, Spain, that had a passenger with diarrhea, and they had to turn around. They wouldn't let it. They were afraid of the virus spreading or whatever.
Awful for the passenger.
Horrifying, right? And then in February 2023, so about a year ago, a United flights from San Diego to New Jersey was grounded when a portable battery pack caught fire 10 minutes after takeoff.
That's terrifying.
4 people were treated at the hospital for smoke inhalation. So it's like they took off. I can't
imagine what it would be like for smoke in a pressurized cabin.
Yeah, where's it going to go, right? Yeah, boy. So apparently it's just lots of flight issues. Although I would think I'm trying to think the worst one. The diarrhea one probably is the worst one. But just for that one guy.
The person who's like,
oh my gosh, I'm in the news.
I have diarrhea and it's awful.
No, I don't want to do an interview.
Turn the plane around. And then you like have to walk off and be like, I'm so sorry to everyone on this flight. I'm sorry, honey, why was your flight delayed? Why did your flight get turned around?
Got the runs.
Someone had the poops.
Oh my gosh.
Stop
pooping. I need a little bell for every time we do a Parks and Rec or the Office quote. I do. No, I love that. I need a little bell to like ding every time we have a Parks and Rec moment. So anyways, I thought that was pretty funny / horrifying /
disgusting.
All right, so I was pretty sure that you were going to have that one on your radar, the maggots. I thought that was going to be your story.
No.
So I have a backup one just in case, so I'll share it with you.
Okay.
Biofluorescence. There is an unseen world in the Celtic rainforest revealed by UV lights.
There's a Celtic rainforest?
Yeah, first off, let's talk about that. There's a Celtic
Is that
rainforest.
Possible? I thought it was too cold up there.
Nope. It's thick. So in Wales.
I know it gets really wet there.
Yeah,
but.
Yep. And so they have, every year in Wales, they have something called the Dark Skies Week. And it's one of those things with like the light pollution, and they're like, everybody has to turn their lights off for a week. And there was an eerie glow emanating from the Wales forest and the rock pools for the country's annual Dark Skies Week. So there was a guy who is a nature guide from Norwich, David Athow, and they said, we want you to come in with your UV lights and shine it on some of the best nature spots in Pembrokeshire and Monmouthshire. So his photos of the temperate rainforest in Wales reveal shapes, structures, and colors that rival a coral reef.
Oh, that's so cool.
It looks amazing. Like, these pictures are cool. I'll show them to you. And so he's a 34-year-old man, this guy, and he's on a one-man mission to shine UV light on what he calls a magic world in which plants and animals fluoresce in order to communicate.
Whoa.
He's like, they've been talking to each other all along. I mean, this is like Avatar level stuff.
Yeah.
Wales is so lucky to have so many beautiful sites for biofluorescence with rock pools and a temperate rainforest. I learned so much from this article.
That's so interesting.
I first didn't know there was a rainforest in Wales.
Nope, not even a little bit.
I had no idea that plants and animals can communicate plants with other plants and stuff through biofluorescence. And that also, I didn't know that they had a Dark Skies Week. I love that. Cool. That's such a cool thing. And so he's been all over the place giving tours and all that kind of stuff. The Wales Dark Skies Week is like a big deal. The ancient woodlands are full of moss and lichen which light up under UV, and lots of creatures too, like woodlice and centipedes doing interesting things. So they all glow that way. The lichens, the algae, they go different colors. The beauty of it rivals a coral reef. It's just so vibrant. It was fascinating. I was immediately hooked, said Ruth Waycock of the Way Valley National Landscape. She helped organize it. The biofluorescence walks.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Like,
I didn't know
through.
any
It
of
sounds
that.
like he sets up his lights, right? And then like you go walking through and you get to see it all.
That's really cool.
Biofluorescence is another level of communication that we cannot see. But if you shine a UV light, suddenly you see a horrendous green or a yellow of a plant saying, "You don't want to eat me. I'm poisonous."
That's cool.
It's very cool. I was like, it looks like deep sea kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. His advice is, he said, like, there's a whole world of people who take UV flashlights and then, like, go out into the world and shine it on stuff to see what the world looks like under UV lights.
That's crazy.
His advice, he's like, get yourself a UV torch, which is what British people call flashlights.
Flashlights, yeah.
And start having a look at what you can find in the garden. Start with flowers or a caterpillar. See if you can find one. You'll be amazed what you can see. There's a whole world under UV light that we can't see. And I was like, that is pretty
fascinating.
Awesome. I thought that was a cool one. So that was my backup story, just in case you had
the maggot story.
The maggot story, because that one, I saw that one on like every platform and like 3 different news sites.
I didn't see it on any of the things that I go through.
I'm not sure you would have clicked on it if you did see it.
Ugh, no, probably not.
All right, so what is sponsoring your life today?
Not just today. Mostly it was last week. We went to the Ash Wednesday service at the Midland campus.
Nice.
And they had a soup dinner, put on by the youth.
It was awesome.
And I just love soup. It was good soup. I really do.
It was.
And the hearty bread that they had, too. That was really good bread.
It was crazy bread. They had a whole loaf of it on the table, and our family ate the whole thing.
Yeah, the boys each had 2 pieces.
Yeah, they loved it.
It was good. But I had this really delicious. Actually, I had it for lunch today too. I kind of forgot. It's sauerkraut soup.
That's right.
It was so good.
That's right.
It had sauerkraut
really
and sausage. I love sauerkraut.
I love sausage, but I don't like sauerkraut.
It was so good. Like, it was just a really hearty, really good soup.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sponsor of my life.
That's a fantastic sponsor. Also, because it was like a youth event, and there were donations that they collected for their stuff, and it was good to see all the kids serving. And
it was.
Well, and it was held. So we have a church. For those who don't know, our church is one church with 2 campuses. There's a Midland campus and a Saginaw campus, and it was all the campuses together for Ash Wednesday in the Midland location, and it really felt like it.
It was a good turnout. There was a lot of people there.
It was a very full house because we had. There were at least 3 or 4 tables of Saginaw folks, which is our main campus. That's where we're at most of the time. So that just felt like we were one church, and that was really cool.
It was nice to see everybody.
Yeah, that came up a lot in staff meeting. It was like, this was so fun. Like Ash Wednesday went well.
Good, yeah.
It was a good service with music and everything. It was awesome. Let's see, sponsor my life. So we were in Grand Rapids this past weekend, like a week ago. Yep. And when we were there, we were in a house that has one room that does not have proper insulation. And that one room is colder than all the other rooms. And having been sleeping in the room where we have our baby and we have our little space heater that heats up the room. And in our house, the bedroom heats up so fast and it's like super toasty in there. And I've gotten kind of used to the super toasty warm. So sponsor of my life today is our little space heater. I love it. It's amazing. It's so simple. They're like $20 and you plug it in, you turn it on. And ours has like little settings. Like if you don't want it to be stifling, you can turn it down a little bit and it will just go until it hits that temperature and then cut down. It is wonderful. And I think it helps her sleep better. And
yeah, it does. Especially when she's over hot, but like when we were sitting there or we were in bed and I like reached over and I felt her hand and I was like, oh my gosh, she's got little ice cube hands.
When we were in the cold house.
Yeah.
Yes.
I felt bad. So.
And I was just like, I was shivering and I was like, we should have brought our space heater. I just missed it.
Well, and to be fair, it was super cold that weekend.
It's been, we've had a few days.
It was super windy and super cold and like.
Icy cold
holy cow, you could just like hear the wind blowing outside and like. Beating against the house, and I was like, it's bitter cold outside. So
yeah, it's a good time of year to be like in a warm space.
Yeah,
and space heaters can help you on your way. Everybody needs a space heater. And the one we have I really like because space heaters are like notoriously dangerous, right? Like if you kick it over, it could start a fire or whatever. And so ours has a little sensor or clicker on the bottom. And if it gets knocked over, it immediately stops.
Shuts off. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I like that. Because we have a lot of kids who knock over things.
Play with / knock over.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you ready for our hot topic?
Yeah, sure. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yep, I'm excited. So I have a story for you.
Oh, okay.
But the story comes with, because I thought it was an interesting topic. So first, how do you feel? Well, okay, we've talked about this a number of times about how you and I both have it's so funny. We're very religious people. We're very faithful. We do believe in the divine and in the
very
spiritual.
religious people. We're very religious.
We
people.
are, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not just spiritual. We are religious. Like,
there's a big difference.
yeah, like we believe in Jesus. We believe in the Holy Spirit and all that. But then we also like do church and all the. We actually practice our faith. It's not just up in our head. And so, and yet we both come from traditions that are fairly skeptical of the supernatural.
Yes.
Right? Like, we don't believe in paranormal stuff like ghosts or anything like that. But even things that fit inside our religious tradition, like miracle stories, we're skeptical of.
Yeah.
Right? So here's my question for you. Do you believe in near-death experiences where people like, you know, they're on the operating table and they're like, I went to heaven and I came back and I saw what heaven was like. I was technically dead for 7 minutes. Or
I'm not like denying that it's possible.
Yep,
But
yep.
like, I am, like you said, very skeptical.
Yep. Do you remember we went to that church a couple of weeks ago when we had when we had Maggie? We went to a church. It was an amazing church. They had such a great worship service. But the sermon was from a preacher who comes from maybe a more Pentecostal charismatic background. And he told a story of a miracle that he had witnessed. And I remember being like, wow. And then a little bit in my head, I was like, did that really happen?
Well, and I hate that because like I that was my knee-jerk reaction too. Is like coming from a very like logical, like, I don't know. I guess it's just my tradition that I came from, like,
but
very
isn't
much
that funny
like,
because we're such
because we have like completely removed like the power of the Holy Spirit for.
Isn't that I know it's really so weird.
Sad. But you know we don't. I mean, our emphasis less on the Holy Spirit, but they all three have to work together. But I definitely did have that knee-jerk reaction of like, yeah, that really didn't happen. There wasn't a miraculous healing where this woman who was like on her deathbed suddenly like got up and walked away and started like dancing around the kitchen. Like that can't be true. But I mean, that's not fair for me to like
we do
deny
believe in that.
Why couldn't that happen? Like, if that's what God wanted to happen and he was able to heal her, why not? Like,
do you think that that's kind of a Dutch thing, like a Reformed tradition? Like, you get the Reformed tradition is very stoic and serious and solemn. Do you think that that's why they don't have that belief in kind of the more
maybe
frenzied parts of?
That.
I don't know.
Frenzied parts.
Well, they're just so for me. I'm pretty sure a big chunk of it is like I'm not Dutch, I'm German, but it's very similar in our cultural value of like serious and solemn, and we don't, like.
It could be.
I don't know, but
I have no idea. But I just hate sometimes that I'm so skeptical.
Part of that for me though is I grew up with a lot of stories of people who were lying.
Yeah, so you kind of have a cynical view of it.
Yeah, it's like I want to believe, and I do believe it's possible, but I know that people lie and try to get money or stories, and they'll manipulate, and so I have a very healthy, hefty burden of proof. It's like, all right, you got to show me, like if Moses showed up and said, God told me to set the people free or whatever, I would be the one who wants to see the snake do its thing. I'd be like, show it to me. I don't believe you. Prove it.
You're such a Thomas.
I am. I'm like, come on, let me stick my finger in where you're in the hand with a hole.
In the final cut.
All right, so this is a story, and actually, I think the tagline is what drew me in, but actually, this article is like just sort of a testimony of this guy's life, and I want to make sure I said it right. Federico Magbanua. He's a pastor in the Philippines, and he has this crazy life story, and he's done amazing, amazing things. But the reason that the headline is how a radio current jolted a Christian leader into staying in ministry. So he got electrocuted, and that's how he decided to stay in ministry.
So lightning literally struck him.
Sort of. It was a radio tower, and he was fixing it, and it fried him, and it's kind of an insane thing. So he passed away. His name is Federico, but he went by Fred. And he was preaching a radio sermon on offering one's body as a living sacrifice. He probably didn't imagine that he'd one day hear those words again as a 10,000 watt radio frequency current charged through him in a near-death accident. 1961. So this guy, he lived a long, healthy life and then passed away recently.
Okay.
And so about 10 years ago he passed away. So they're honoring and celebrating his life with this article. But it drew me in with the crazy story of getting electrocuted. And that just got me thinking about near-death experiences. Like, do you remember the book Is Heaven Heaven is for Real? That's the one.
Didn't we watch that movie?
I think we did. Which we're not into those kind of movies at all. I read the book because a lot of our friends were like, it's the best. You just have to read it.
I never read the book.
People at the church, remember?
Don't.
Oh yeah, it was at Wesley up in the UP. Bunch of people at the church were like, "This is so good, you have to read it." And I read the book. I didn't enjoy it though. I read the book and I went,
I guess I need to be a little more open-minded.
It's hard though. It's really hard. So it happened one night in early 1961. Magbanua was working at the Far East Broadcasting Company, the FEBC, gospel radio ministry. He was mulling over a job offer in the United States with a salary that was far greater than what he was currently making. He was a pastor of a small Baptist church and an engineer at the radio station, and he had been given a job offer in the United States that was like way more money. Sure. And he was like, maybe I want to go there. Suddenly, the warning lights on a 308-foot radio tower went out. He loaded up some new bulbs onto a bag, and he began climbing the structure. From his home nearby, his wife, watched him scale the tower. What he didn't realize was that the grounding system, which diverts the energy to the ground to present surges, wasn't working. So the radio frequency current hit his head using his body as a lightning rod. Ooh. Literally, he was executed by a tremendous surge of electrical power. The program that was airing at that moment was his own sermon. Him preaching on Romans 12:1-2. Through the sparking, he heard his own voice in his head. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your body as a living sacrifice. He heard those words in his head. Isn't that crazy? Miraculously, he was released by the current. He fell to a step that was several feet from the top of the tower. So he's 300 feet up in the air, and he gets electrocuted. He falls just a few feet and catches himself rather than falling all 300 feet. God. He managed to climb down the ladder, get to the company nurse's office where he collapsed. His wife later saw him at the clinic. He was swaddled in towels like a baby, and his whole head of hair was burnt. He was hospitalized for months, and the doctors had to graft skin from his thighs to cover the lost skin on his head.
Oh my God!
I mean, this is like getting struck by lightning. It's crazy. So that experience literally jolted him out of his reasoning. He was thinking about leaving the country, and he said, nope. Here's my part that I really enjoyed. So he ended up staying and serving in the Philippines and for the next 33 years, including becoming the first non-American managing director.
Wow.
Then he started a church planting movement that sought to establish a church in every barangay, which is their word for neighborhood. He also influenced a new generation of Filipino evangelical leaders, and they list a bunch of people. So, and then, I mean, this article, and I'll link it in the show notes. It's from Christianity Today. And they go back to his birth and him being raised. He was raised by a poor family, had to walk 3 miles barefoot to attend school, all this stuff, committed his life to Christ in high school. He ended up staying and studying. In 1957, he met and married his wife, Viola Alou. I'm not sure, but Viola. She was an English teacher. He bought a wedding ring for 36 cents. And the wedding ceremony took place at a missionary garden on Thanksgiving Day. So they would work as a missionary. His wife and he would receive 35 pesos, or 62 cents a month, as ministry support, which meant sometimes they could only eat 1 meal a day. The wife remembers her mom saying, you married a pastor. That was dumb. You shouldn't have married a pastor. They don't make any money. You married a pastor, now you're going to die of hunger. That's what her mom told her.
Wow.
How did you feel about marrying a pastor or dying of hunger?
That's what my mom told me. You're going to die of hunger.
She responded to her mom, don't worry, I'm happy here even if we are not eating. As their family grew, they had 5 children. The pastor was tempted to find more profitable work in the United States. When he told his wife that the move would allow him to give the money he made to God, right? Like he was like, we could go to the States, make more money. I can give that money to God. She was firm. I do not agree with your plan. She remembers saying, we have to stay here. So she's the one who told her husband, I think you need to be here, and I think you need to be a pastor.
Wow.
Don't go to the United States. Don't make more money.
Wow.
Then,
That's crazy.
after the shocking tower experience,
Literally shocking.
Magbanua himself felt convicted to stay. So then he started out, and he became the chair of the newly founded Philippine Council of Evangelical Churches, the PCEC. It had 11 churches, 11 member churches. When he died, today the umbrella group has 55,000
wow,
churches.
That's cool.
Now, it's not that he started every single one of those,
but still, he was kind of
instrumental in this work for
that's
3
cool.
decades in this radio station.
That's awesome.
So I was listening to the story, and I was like, why am I so cynical and skeptical?
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's a cultural thing. Like, is that the Dutch and the German in us, or is it a religious tradition thing? CRC and United Methodists we're fairly like accepting and respectful of like science and logic and reasoning. So I don't know. I'm like, why am I, as a very religious and spiritual person, like I'm very open to the divine. Obviously, I believe in God and Jesus. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe miracles are popular. I mean, possible. Mm-hmm. And yet I find myself...
Miracles are popular.
Miracles are popular. Actually, they are. They're very popular. Everyone seems to like those
very
miracles.
Very popular when you get electrocuted. I wonder, too, if it's just not a misunderstanding, but like not a lot of teaching / experience / understanding of the Holy Spirit and that whole aspect of faith.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of emphasis on God. There's a lot of emphasis on Jesus. There's not much emphasis on the Holy Spirit or, like, sort of divine occurrence, Yep. Like, and so I feel like maybe that just lack in our understanding and upbringing, it could be a combination of culture and tradition, could speak to why we are that way.
I'm very skeptical, and yet when I do read those stories like this one, I love it. Like, it inspires me. It gives me goosebumps. It's like, whoa.
I know. I got chills every time you were talking about those things.
I can't believe he heard a sermon from himself on a passage about giving your body.
So crazy. And so cool.
And I mean, you can call it a coincidence if you want, but I'm not going to believe you.
Nah, there's no way.
That was way too cool.
That was so amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well, and first off, and it's such a funny thing because there's like the reports of people who get struck by lightning, because it actually does happen, and people, there's lots of stories, but like it has such widely varying effects on people. Some people, it's like nothing bad happens. I went and got checked out, and they were like, "Are you sure you got hit by lightning?" And then there's other people who was like, it destroyed my nervous system, or it burnt, like it broke my watch, or and it can be like very minimal and very like barely even evidence that it happened. And then there's others where it's like they died right away.
It's true.
And it's fascinating to me. Like, wait, why does it just has to hit you a certain way? And it hit him enough that it knocked him off his seat on the tower.
And that it caused like him to burn his head, and he had to have skin grafts and everything.
But the fact that he was able to climb down and then walk to the compound's nurse's office, which I assume wasn't very far.
I'm sure the adrenaline probably helped him get there. But oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's just crazy. But
it really is.
And so he stepped down from that radio ministry in 1992. He reached the retirement age of 60, and he said, "But I'm still young. I think I may still be useful in advancing God's kingdom." Which I love that. I just love that mentality. It's like, well, hey, I'm gonna retire from this, but if I can still be useful. So then he starts looking into the country's rural areas, and he's like, there's 42,000 barangays. It's the smallest administrative unit in the Philippines, overseen by a local city or municipal government. But he's like, all these 42,000, they don't have any churches. I'm gonna put a church in every single one.
Wow.
And that was his goal, and he just kept working on it, kept raising up pastors and helping out. And they're tiny, they're super small. People don't have jobs, he said. They would tithe chickens or eggs or banana or pumpkin or fish. And so then the pastors would have something to eat. But if the pastor's children would get sick, they would have no money for medicine. And if their kids needed to go to school, there was no money for the fees. It's really tricky to have a barter system for tithing in terms of taking care of your pastors. But that's amazing, right?
That is really cool.
Oh, such a cool world. So, massive shout out to, let's see, who wrote this article? The article was written by Caleb Galarraga. It was just a few weeks ago, and it's a really cool breakdown. And I definitely want to encourage everyone, go read the article. It's so fun. And there's a lot more I skipped over, but
Sure.
I hit the highlights because I wanted to talk about near-death experiences.
That's so interesting.
Because I don't know, some of them I do find them hokey, especially if they turn it into profit.
Yes.
You know, if they're
that's
like,
when
I will sell this story and make a movie, and it's like, yeah, no, I don't like that. And
Nope.
I don't know, maybe that's just
It
me being
cheapens
cynical. It does. You know, I think that,
Mhm.
you know, if you come across this massive life-changing thing, your heart shouldn't be, how can I make money off of
No,
it? You know?
absolutely not.
It should be, what was God telling me?
Yeah.
What could I do?
Mhm.
And the answer is almost always not
Not
go make money
monetizing
off of it. You know, like, no.
Yeah, that seems
Tell
wrong.
people about him. So, well, and I remember, if I remember right, that Heaven is for Real movie, like the kid grew up a little bit and then said, yeah, they told me what to say, and I didn't really believe any of that stuff. And it was like, oh, come on.
That's disappointing.
Well, and that's when you set yourself up for it. If you're going to do something fake, you always set yourself up for the opportunity that's going to be found out. And it does. It cheapens and ruins the real thing when the real thing walks in. What was that? Have you ever seen the movie Leap of Faith? I feel like we've talked about this before.
No.
The Steve Martin movie?
No.
No? I would be very excited to watch that movie with you someday. He's a fake evangelical charlatan guy.
Oh, really?
And he goes from town to town pulling pranks and hoaxes on people to get money out of them. I can't remember the whole movie. I remember bits and pieces. I remember one of the things was that, like, they do this big prayer service and they've got a crucifix with a Jesus up on front, and then he like sneaks in and paints the eyes open so the eyes were closed, and he like paints the eyes so that they look like they're open, and everyone's like, it's a miracle, Jesus is awake now.
That's creepy.
And
Weird.
it was a fascinating story. It was like I want to say it was like late 70s, maybe early 80s.
Huh, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's called Leap of Faith. I never saw it anywhere in the wild, but my parents had a copy of it. You know, like you remember when they used to have VHSs with like written scrawl where they tape it off of TV, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We had lots of those.
Anyways, that's all I got.
That's
for our
crazy.
hot topic today.
Nice.
Are you
Ready to end our podcast?
Yes. Are you ready to end our podcast?
Yes.
Good. Are you ready to send us out with the mom joke of the week?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
Did you hear about the 2 artists who had an art contest?
No?
It ended in a draw.